May 2, 2018, 12:38 p.m. Eastern Daylight Saving Time. May 2, 2018, 12:38 p.m. Eastern Daylight Saving Time. DFS Bennett, Bedford and Rotochill's Lineup Optimizer break down the 2018 Wells Fargo Championship field to help you find the best picks and sleepers for your daily fantasy golf contests. I hope everyone enjoyed the week off from PGA DFS action, because we are back this week with one of my favorite events of the year, the Wells Fargo Championship held at Quail Hollow Country Club in Charlotte. As many of you remember, this event wasn't held at Quail Hollow last year, as the PGA Championship made the trip to QH for the first time. With that being said, the layout and conditions that we saw for the PGA Championship here aren't going to be what we see for the Wells Fargo this year. The rough will be significantly shorter and much less penal this week, and a few of the holes have been shortened. Quail Hollow will still play as one of the longest tracks that we see all year despite the shortening, measuring at just around 7,500 yards for a par 71 layout, which makes for plenty of potential picks in daily fantasy golf contests. The field this week is absolutely stacked, as a ton of elite players are using this week as early prep for the U.S. Open and for the Players' Championship next week. Former winners Rory McIlroy, Rickie Fowler, and Tiger Woods are some of the top headliners, and Justin Thomas will also have some fond memories returning to the site of his PGA Championship victory for the first time. Other elite players in the field include Jason Day, Masters champ Patrick Reed, Hideki Matsuyama, Phil Mickelson, Tommy Fleetwood, Paul Casey, and Brooks Koepka. Add that to an extremely deep mid-range of players like local Webb Simpson, Brian Moore, Tony Finau, Alex Noren, Bryant Harmon, Bryson DeChambeau and Daniel Berger, and you have one of the strongest and deepest non-major fields that we'll see all year. The sheer length of the Quail Hollow is going to force players to go to driver off the tee early and often, and while length is certainly important, I'm going to be focusing on a mix of accuracy and length total driving this week. Even though the rough will be short, the design of many of the holes around Quail Hollow will still require players to miss on the proper side of the fairway or face an impossible angle on their approach shot. Just go back and look at guys who have success here: Rory McIlroy, Rickie Fowler, Webb Simpson, James Hahn, Ryan Moore, and Justin Thomas, to name a few. All are different style of players off the tee, but they all are either super long or super accurate off the tee. More DFS, lineup builder, strategy. While there are only 3 par 5s around Quail Hollow, they are by far the easiest scoring holes on the course. All 3 are reachable and 2 for the longer hitters, and elite scoring on the par 5s will be a major key to success this week. There aren't going to be many wedge approach shots into greens at Quail Hollow, so targeting players who are solid with mid and long irons is another angle to attack this week, especially for some of the guys who aren't as long off the tee as the elite bombers. As a final note on roster construction, the pricing in the low $7,000s is excellent, so I feel that a stars and scrubs lineup build is in play this week. Even in cash games, there's plenty of strategy that goes into putting together a winning DFS lineup, and the best place to start is Rotochill's DFS tools. Our Rotok PGA Lineup Optimizer offers a massive advantage when you're building lineups, regardless of contest size or site. I'm always there to help, too, so check me out on Twitter, @TheFsbench, for even more NFL, NBA, MLB and PGA daily fantasy content. Key stats: strokes gained, off the tee total driving strokes gained, approach 150 to 175 yards, par 5 scoring. Wells Fargo Championship picks, daily fantasy golf, top tier targets. Rory McIlroy $11,800. The top tier of this event is absolutely loaded, and it's hard to tell where ownership will land at this point in the week. However, the guy I'll be loading up on is Quail Hollow course record holder McIlroy. Rory really disappointed in his PGA Championship showing here, but he was dealing with some nagging injuries and was in poor form at the time. There isn't a better player in the field off the tee with the driver in their hands, and I think the time off after his Sunday Masters disappointment will do McIlroy well heading into this week. I mentioned that a Stars and Scrubs roster construction is extremely easy to make with some of the plays in the low $7,000s, so look to load up on Rory in all formats. Phil Mickelson $9,200 on paper. Mickelson's game shouldn't be a great fit for Quail Hollow. This is a long trek that is incredibly demanding off the tee, and the driver is the one club that has given Phil fits throughout his career. That, however, hasn't slowed Phil's role at Quail Hollow at all. He has posted finishes of T4 his past 2 starts at Quail Hollow, PGA Championship not included, and has the best course history of anyone in the field who does not have a win. Phil's excellent short game and scrambling will help him grind out the difficult par 4s, and he has feasted on the par 5s here throughout the years. Mickelson will be a cash game lock for me this week at $9,200, and I will look to go overweight on him in tournaments. Others to consider: Jason Day, Hideki Matsuyama. Mid-tier targets: Tommy Fleetwood $9,000. Fleetwood and his excellent hair will make their first Wells Fargo appearance this week, and I love how Tommy's game sets up for Quail Hollow. Fleetwood doesn't have elite length off the tee, but he is by no means a short knocker. His off-the-tee game actually reminds me a lot of Ricky Fowler, who has a ton of success in Charlotte, and there aren't many players who are better than Tommy with their irons this season. Fleetwood was one of the most touted players in DFS to start the season, but the hype around him has cooled despite maintaining solid finishes. With so many solid plays in the $9,000 range, I can't see Fleetwood's ownership getting above 15%. Webb Simpson $8,400 death taxes, and rostering Simpson at Quail Hollow. Webb is a member at QH and is one of my favorite mid-range options despite his likely high ownership. In terms of course setup, Quail Hollow is the ideal track at which to target Simpson. His mix of solid all-around ball striking will set him up tee to green, and he is putting as well as he has in his entire career this season. Those of you who have been reading my PGA columns for the past year will know that I'm a huge Webb homer, and I won't be jumping ship this week at one of his favorite tracks. He projects as more of a cash game play, but don't be afraid to look his way in tournaments, as well. James Hahn $7,800. Hahn is a guy to target anytime we get to a long course that puts an emphasis on driver play. I was suckered into playing him at Heritage despite knowing that it was a bad setup for his game, and he missed the cut. However, I won't hold that against him as he returns to the site of his last PGA Tour win back in 2016. You probably don't need to look to Hahn in cash games, but the combination of course fit, likely low ownership, and solid win equity make him one of the top GPP plays on the board. Others to consider: Tony Finau, Alex Noren, GPP, Adam Hadwin. More DFS, lineup builder, strategy value targets: Adam Scott $7,300. Hello Darkness, my old friend. What's the saying? Those who ignore history are bound to repeat it. Well, here we are again, and after being burned by Scott at Valero, I'll be going right back to him this week at Quail Hollow. Look, the price is just too cheap for a player the quality of Scott, and I would say with confidence that he has by far the highest win equity of anyone in the sub $7,500 price range. His putter is horrendous right now, but we've seen bad putters contend time and time again at this event. You have to think Scott turns it around at some point this season, and a set P this week that allows him to lean on his ball striking and excellent driving ability like we have this week is as good of a time as any. Lucas Glover $6,900. While we're on the topic of elite ball strikers who can't putt, Glover is a great option if you're looking to save some salary and dip below $7,000. $7,000. $7,000. $7,000. $7,000. $7,000. $7,000. $7,000. $7,000. $7,000. $7,000. $7,000. $7,000. $7,000. $7,000. $7,000. $7,000. $7,000. $7,000. $7,000. $7,000. $7,000. $7,000. $7,000. $7,000. $7,000. $7,000. $7,000. $7,000. $7,000. $7,000. $7,000. $7,000. $7,000. $7,000. $7,000. $7,000. $7,000. $7,000. $7,000. $7,000. $7,000. $7,000. $7,000. $7,000. $7,000. $7,000. $7,000. $7,000. $7,000. $7,000. $7,000. $7,000. $7,000. $7,000. $7,000. $7,000. $7,000. $7,000. $7,000. $7,000. $7,000. $7,000. Glover is never a guy to play in Birdie Fest tournaments, but he's a nice fit this week with Quail Hollow requiring a little more grinding. The glove has a solid track record at Quail Hollow, with finishes of T33, PGA Championship, 8th, and T28 his last 3 showings there. Similar to Adam Scott, just don't watch his shot tracker and his zillion missed 6-footers or else you'll go insane. Others to consider: J.B. Holmes, GPP, Grayson Murray, Nick Watney, Kyle Stanley.